Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Emma, and as always, I'm joined by the one and only Jake. How are you doing today, Jake?
I'm doing really well, thanks for asking. I just got back from a trip, actually, so I'm still kind of riding that post-travel high. You know that feeling where you're back home, but your mind is still somewhere else?
Oh, totally. That feeling is so real. I think there's even a word for it. Some people call it travel hangover. Not because you're sick, but because you're just not quite ready to be back in real life yet.
Exactly. And honestly, the thing I keep thinking about isn't even the food or the sights, it's the people I met along the way. Like, some of the most memorable moments from any trip are the unexpected conversations you have with strangers.
That's actually a perfect way to kick off today's topic, because today we're talking all about meeting people while traveling. How to do it, what to say, those awkward moments, the beautiful moments, all of it. Jake, let's start with the basics. Are you naturally someone who talks to strangers, or did you have to kind of push yourself to do that?
Honestly, I had to push myself. When I was younger, I was pretty shy around people I didn't know. I'd sit on a train and just stare at my phone rather than make eye contact with anyone. But at some point, I realized I was missing out. Like, I was literally surrounded by interesting people, and I was just ignoring them.
That's such a relatable thing to say, and I think a lot of our listeners probably feel the same way. Missing out is a great phrase, by the way. It means you're not getting an experience or opportunity that's right there in front of you. So, what changed for you? What made you start actually talking to people?
I think it was one specific trip to Portugal. I was sitting alone at a little cafe in Lisbon, and this older man just sat down next to me and started talking about the neighborhood like I was an old friend. He wasn't trying to sell me anything, he was just friendly. And I thought, wow, that cost him nothing, and it completely made my day. I wanted to be that person for someone else.
Oh, I love that story. There's something about cafes specifically, I think. Like, cafes are these natural gathering places. They invite conversation. Did you end up talking to him for a long time?
We talked for almost 2 hours. He told me about the history of the street we were on, recommended a restaurant that wasn't in any guidebook, and by the end, we'd exchanged numbers. We still message each other occasionally. It's funny because we don't even speak the same first language, but somehow we manage.
That is genuinely lovely, and it touches on something important. You don't need to speak perfectly to connect with someone. Connect here means to build a real moment of understanding or friendship with another person. A lot of our listeners are learning English, and sometimes they worry that their language isn't good enough to have real conversations while traveling. What would you say to them?
I'd say, honestly, people are more patient than you think. If you're making the effort, most people appreciate that. No one is secretly judging your grammar. They're listening to what you're trying to say, not how perfectly you say it.
That's such an important point, and I really want it to sink in, meaning I want people to really absorb and remember it. Your effort matters more than your perfection. Okay, so let's talk about some real situations. What are the most common places where you actually meet people when you travel?
Okay, so the obvious ones are hostels, obviously, if you're staying in shared accommodation, but also long bus or train rides, group tours, cooking classes, local markets, really anywhere you're in close proximity to other people for a period of time. Close proximity just means physically near to each other.
Right, and I'd add airports and airport lounges to that list. I've had some of my best conversations while waiting for a delayed flight. Which, yes, the delay is annoying, but suddenly you've got 2 hours and a stranger next to you and you're both equally frustrated. So that's a bonding moment right there.
Shared suffering, the ultimate icebreaker. Icebreaker, for anyone who doesn't know, is something that helps start a conversation and makes the situation feel less awkward, like breaking through a wall of ice between two people.
I love that image. So let's actually talk about how to start those conversations, because I think that's where a lot of people freeze up. Freeze up meaning they suddenly can't move or speak because they're nervous. What are some natural ways to open a conversation with a stranger while traveling?
The easiest one, honestly, is just asking for something simple, like asking for directions, asking what something is on a menu, or asking if a seat is taken. It's low pressure because there's a clear reason you're speaking to them. It doesn't feel random or weird.
Right. It feels purposeful. And then sometimes that small question naturally leads into something bigger. Like you ask about the menu, and then suddenly you're sharing a meal together 45 minutes later.
That's literally happened to me. In Vietnam, I asked a woman what dish she was eating, and she not only told me, but just ordered it for me. And then we sat and ate together and talked for an hour. I would never have experienced that if I hadn't just asked that one small question.
Okay, that is such a good story. And it also shows something really important. Sometimes the other person is just as happy to connect as you are. We assume people want to be left alone, but often they don't. They're also a bit lonely, a bit curious about you.
Exactly. Travelers especially, there's this unspoken thing where you're all kind of in the same boat. In the same boat is a great idiom, meaning you're all in the same situation. You're all far from home, navigating a new place, maybe a little out of your comfort zone.
Out of your comfort zone. Another great phrase. It means doing something that feels a bit unfamiliar or slightly uncomfortable, outside your usual routine. And actually, being out of your comfort zone is kind of the whole point of travel, right? That's where the growth happens.
Absolutely. I think travel makes you a more flexible person, more adaptable. You deal with unexpected things constantly, and you learn to just roll with it. Roll with it means to accept a situation and adjust to it rather than getting stressed or upset.
Yes. And I think that flexibility also helps you in social situations. When you've already dealt with a missed train or a language barrier at the pharmacy, suddenly talking to a stranger feels much less scary.
That's such a good point. Travel lowers your social inhibitions. Your inhibitions are basically the inner voice that says, "Don't do that. It'll be awkward." After a few days of navigating everything solo, that voice gets a lot quieter.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the actual phrases people can use, like real, natural sentences. What's something you might actually say to start talking to someone at a hostel, for example?
At a hostel, I'd probably just say something like, "Hey, how long have you been traveling?" Or "Where are you headed next?" Those are really open-ended questions, meaning they can't be answered with just yes or no. So they naturally invite the other person to share more.
And those are also questions that show genuine curiosity. You're actually interested in their answer, and people can feel that. What about on a tour? Like one of those guided group tours where you're all stuck together for a day?
Group tours are actually fantastic for meeting people because you already have something in common. You all chose to be on this same tour. So you can say something like, "Have you done any other tours like this?" Or even just comment on what you're seeing. "I can't believe how old this building is," and see if someone responds.
I call those open comments. Things you say out loud that aren't really directed at anyone specific, but they give people the chance to respond if they want to. It's very low risk, because if nobody responds, it's fine. You were just thinking out loud.
Low risk, high potential reward. That's my travel social strategy in a nutshell.
That should be a book title. Okay, what about when the language barrier is real? Like you genuinely don't share much common language with someone. How do you navigate that?
It becomes this really interesting creative game, actually. You use gestures, expressions, you try a few words in their language, even if they're badly pronounced, and you both laugh about it and somehow figure out what you're trying to say. It's surprising how much you can communicate without words.
That's so true. And making an attempt in someone's native language, even if you only know 3 words, genuinely touches people. It shows respect. It shows that you see their culture as worth engaging with.
100%.
I once tried to say thank you very much in Japanese, and apparently my pronunciation was terrible. But the woman I said it to just lit up. Her whole face changed. That small thing made a real difference in the interaction.
Lit up is such a vivid way to describe it. It means her face suddenly became very bright and happy, like a light turning on. And I think that captures something important, the emotional warmth of being seen and respected.
And the funny thing is, in that moment, my imperfect Japanese did more than perfect English would have. The effort was the message.
The effort was the message. I love that. Can I ask about a time when an attempt to connect with someone didn't go so well? Like, not every interaction is a success story, right?
Oh, definitely not. Okay, so I was in a small town in Spain, and I tried to join a conversation at a bar, just kind of inserted myself into a group of locals, and they were perfectly polite, but it was very clear they weren't really interested in including me. There was this awkward silence, and I eventually just drifted away.
Drifted away. I like how diplomatic that sounds. Like you just floated off naturally.
Exactly. Very gracefully. But honestly, that's okay. Not every attempt to connect will land. Land meaning succeed or be received well. And that's fine. You can't take it personally.
Right, and I think that's a mindset shift that really helps. Seeing a failed conversation as just a neutral thing that happened, not a reflection of your worth or your ability. You tried, it didn't work, you move on.
And the next conversation might be life-changing. That's the thing, you genuinely never know. So you just keep trying.
Okay, let's talk about something that comes up a lot, especially for solo travelers. Sometimes people invite you to join them for dinner or an activity, and it can feel a little overwhelming. Like, do I go? Is this safe? How do I make that decision?
That's a really important point, and it's worth being honest about. You should absolutely trust your gut. Trust your gut means trust your instincts, your inner sense of whether something feels right or not. If something feels off, it probably is. Not every friendly stranger has good intentions, and being cautious is smart, not rude.
That's the grown-up reality of travel that we don't always talk about. Safety is genuinely important, but within that, there's still a lot of space for beautiful, spontaneous moments with people who are just genuinely kind.
Exactly. And over time, you develop a kind of radar for it. You get better at reading situations and people. The more you travel, the better you get at sensing which invitations are genuine and which feel a bit off.
So, how do you politely say no to something if you're not comfortable without it being awkward?
Simple and direct works well. Something like, "Thanks so much. I really appreciate the offer, but I think I'm going to keep to my own plans for now." You don't need to explain or justify. Just be warm but clear.
Keep to my own plans is a really gentle way to say no without making it feel like a rejection of the person themselves. I like that. And most people genuinely understand. They've been in that position themselves.
And if you do say yes, if the situation feels right and you decide to go, then just let yourself be present. Don't be on your phone. Don't be thinking about tomorrow's itinerary. Just be there in that moment with those people.
Being present is something we talk about a lot in terms of mindfulness, but honestly, it's also just good social practice. People feel it when you're genuinely engaged with them versus when you're half distracted.
And when you're truly present, even a 30-minute conversation can feel really meaningful. I've had short conversations with strangers that I still think about years later.
Have you ever stayed in touch with someone you met while traveling? Like beyond that initial trip?
Yes, actually a few times. There's a guy named Marco I met in Croatia. We ended up hiking together for a day, completely by chance, and we've been in touch ever since. He visited me when he came through my city, and I stayed with him in Italy the following year.
That's incredible. That's a real friendship that came from one spontaneous day of hiking. And I think that's what people sometimes don't realize. Travel friendships can be just as real and lasting as any other kind.
They can be, yeah. There's something about the context of travel that accelerates connection. You're both open, you're both experiencing new things, so conversations go deeper, faster than they might in regular everyday life.
Accelerates connection. That's a great phrase. It means the process of becoming close to someone happens faster. And I think it's because when you travel, you kind of shed your usual social armor. You're more open, more honest, sometimes more vulnerable. That's beautifully put. Okay, I want to get practical again for a moment. What about exchanging contact information? How do you do that without it feeling forced or awkward?
The most natural way is to just let it happen organically, meaning let it come up naturally rather than forcing it. If the conversation has been good and you've genuinely enjoyed each other's company, at the end you can just say, "Hey, it was really great talking to you. Are you on Instagram? Or want to exchange numbers?"
And most people will be happy about that. It's a compliment, really. You're saying, I valued this enough to want to continue it.
Right. And even if you never actually message each other, there's something nice about the gesture. It closes the conversation on a positive, open-ended note, rather than just walking away.
Open-ended keeps coming up, and I love it as a concept. It means there's no definitive ending. There's potential for more, which is kind of a nice metaphor for travel in general, right? Every trip leaves some doors open.
That's very poetic, Emma.
I have my moments. Okay, let's talk about cultural differences, because I think this is really important. How people meet and interact with strangers is very different depending on where you are in the world.
Hugely different. In some cultures, talking to a stranger is completely natural and normal. In others, it's quite unusual and might even seem intrusive. Intrusive meaning you're entering someone's personal space without being invited. Knowing a bit about local customs before you go can really help you read the room.
Read the room. Another great idiom. It means to understand the social atmosphere of a situation and respond appropriately. So if everyone around you is quiet and reserved, maybe that's not the moment to start a loud, enthusiastic conversation.
Exactly. In Japan, for example, there's a really strong culture of not disturbing strangers in public spaces. But that doesn't mean people don't want to connect. It's just that the way you connect is different. More subtle, more respectful of space.
Whereas somewhere like Brazil or Italy, people might start talking to you before you've even sat down. And both approaches are totally valid. They're just different cultural languages.
And when you travel with an open mind about those differences, you stop judging one culture's social style as wrong and another's as right. You just adapt. You meet people where they are, literally and figuratively.
Meet people where they are. I love that phrase because it works on so many levels. Physically, culturally, emotionally. It means accepting people on their own terms, rather than expecting them to match your expectations.
And honestly, I think that openness is the biggest thing that makes someone good at connecting with people while traveling. More than speaking multiple languages, more than being extroverted, it's just being genuinely open and curious about people.
Curiosity is such a superpower when it comes to conversation. If you're genuinely interested in someone's life, where they're from, what they do, what they love, people can sense that immediately, and they open up.
And it's a two-way thing. When you're curious about someone, they usually become curious about you. So you don't need a perfectly crafted opening line. You just need to be interested.
That's actually such a relief to hear, because I think people overthink it. They prepare these opening lines and then they freeze because the line doesn't fit the situation. But if you're just genuinely curious, the words come naturally.
The preparation should be more about mindset than script. Go in open, go in curious, go in kind. The words will follow.
Go in open, go in curious, go in kind. That's almost like a travel mantra. Can I steal that?
It's all yours.
Thank you. Okay, we are getting close to wrapping up, but before we do, any final thoughts? Any last piece of advice for someone who's about to travel and wants to really make the most of the human connections along the way?
I'd say don't wait for the perfect moment. There is no perfect moment. The conversation you almost had but didn't because the timing felt slightly off, that's the one you'll regret. Just say something. Smile. Ask the question. The worst that happens is a polite non-response. And the best that happens could be a friendship that lasts years.
That is wonderful advice, and I think it applies to a lot more than just travel, honestly. That balance between taking a small risk and potentially gaining something meaningful. Thank you so much for that, Jake. And thank you to everyone listening today. I really hope this episode gave you some confidence, some useful phrases, and maybe a little bit of excitement about the people you're going to meet on your next adventure.
And if you do have a great conversation with a stranger while traveling, we want to hear about it. It's always the stories from real life that are the most inspiring.